a recognition that there's this peaceful presence that exists. I was able to quiet my mind enough to experience it, and it was really breathtaking and surprising that there was this level of peace that I could access. But it felt like it was something external.
Hello and welcome to Passion Harvest. I am Luisa, your host. Thank you so much for joining me wherever you are in the world. I'm so excited to share my conversation today with the wonderful Jack Morrigan. He had a near-death experience that permanently altered his worldview. After this transformation, Jack Morrigan developed telepathic relationships with otherworldly beings, including angels and deities. His awakening experience also revealed the embodiment of non-duality. Jack is dedicated to supporting you to heal from the wounds of our collective human consciousness and awaken to the magical realities of your own life. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Jack, welcome to Passion Harvest.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure to be here. I always feel very curious when I step into a situation like this, because I don't plan anything, and I'm curious where the conversation will take us and what it will bring forward.
Me too. It's kind of like diving into the unknown. Well, maybe it's known, but that's a whole nother maybe episode. I just love the way you describe your experiences. I would love to start for the audience with your near-death experience.
Sure. So it's a little different to most near-death experiences where someone is actually in real physical danger. Like for me, it happened after a period of very intense meditation, where I was meditating on the nature of my own being, and that led into a shift in my consciousness that felt very much like dying. So I was practicing Ramana Maharshi's teachings. Ramana Maharshi is a teacher, an Indian teacher from the 19th century, from the 20th century. And he has this little book called Nanya, which means "Who am I?" And it's really short, and I was just practicing that very in a very focused way, just doing it constantly, like every moment of the day. And it started to create, first of all, a lot of clarity in my mind, a lot of peace. And then I started having mystical experiences, often when I'd be going to sleep, and my consciousness would remain very strong through all the phases of sleep. So I would see what that's like. And eventually it led into me having a lucid dream where I was sat in front of a spiritual teacher. So I was conscious. It was like now. Gave me this spiritual teaching. He said, feel the awareness in your left hand, which I did. And then he said, feel the awareness in your right hand, which I did. I could feel both my hands. And he said, the hands are different. The awareness is one. And I realized that, like, as a direct experience, like I could feel that the awareness that was aware of my left and right hands was the same awareness. And that recognition caused some kind of reaction inside of my psyche, where the dream itself collapsed in on itself, and everything was plunged into darkness. It didn't feel like I even had a body, just like I was some kind of point of consciousness. There was darkness all around me. There was a light in the distance, and the light got brighter and brighter. As it did, I felt this very intense dread, like fear more intense than I've ever felt before. And as it was building and the light was growing brighter, there was also like an ecstasy, like, which I can only describe as an orgasm. Like I literally felt like I was dying and that I was about to die. I think if I fell off a cliff, I would probably have a similar feeling. you know, just to give it some kind of a context. Like I didn't have any context for it. Like it was so more intense than anything I'd ever felt. So then I got very, very close to the light, and it was all that I could see, but there was some kind of barrier between me and the light. And I felt this very subtle invitation to cross over that barrier, to which I was like, no fucking way. Like, if I cross over this barrier, I will be annihilated. Like, everything that I've known myself to be will be destroyed. Like, I'm not that brave. And then there was some kind of what felt like an external force or being, with thinking about it now, like it having some kind of paternal quality to it, like this loving kind of, this is for your best interest, and it just gave me like a little nudge, and it pushed me over this threshold. And when I crossed that threshold, all the fear completely disappeared, as if it had never been there. All I was experiencing was this like pristine orgasm and golden light. Like that's all that was there. It's a difficult thing to describe, because even if we're having an orgasm like in our body, there's other things that are there that are kind of clouding that experience to some extent. So this was like an orgasm with all of that stuff stripped away, which might sound like a really desirable thing. Like people might want to hunt after that. But to me, like it was just incredibly intense. It was like, you know, just sensation turned up to 11. And this beautiful golden light. So after that, I came back into my body, because I had like a thought came in that was like, I hope my body's okay. And then I went back into my body, and that same orgasmic feeling was moving up and down my spine like lightning, just like really rapid, from the base of my spine up to my neck. My body was in this very strange posture. Like the force of the energy was so strong, it was changing the shape of my body. I was drenched in sweat, and eventually it calmed down, and then I fell asleep. I didn't know anything about Kundalini Awakening. So it was intense.
Wow. So that's what the energy going up and down your spine, it can be described as a Kundalini awakening.
Yeah. I found out afterwards that in many cultures all over the world, they talk about this type of spiritual awakening where energy is stored at the base of the spine, and through spiritual practice it can become awakened and move up and down the spine like lightning. The accounts that I was reading were really accurately describing what had happened to me. It's an interesting thing, because a lot of people kind of hunt after this and want to have this kind of experience, and I expect if I hadn't had it, I probably would too. And there's lots of good things that come with it, but you know, it's a mixed bag, like with everything in life, because it changed me. Like it permanently changed my experience of myself and life.
Gosh, I'd love to ask you about that in a minute. I just want to ask you, so once you moved through or were pushed through the barrier, you said it might have been some sort of maternal figure, you lost, all your fear was dissolved.
Mm.
Was that a relief?
Oh yeah. It was amazing. Yeah, it was like this huge burden had been taken away. You know, and I'd never felt that before. Like it really highlighted like how much fear is a constant part of the background of my life. and to not have it there was amazing. I felt so light.
Well, I would say many of our lives many people are filled with fear. And once you cross the threshold or the barrier, you saw this, it's so hard to describe in words. You're doing a great job. But what do you think what would you say was the golden light?
Yeah, like I've managed to piece parts of that together since. And I see it as the light of our being, like, or the light of the soul. You can go through lots of religious texts and stories of mystics, and they talk about us primarily being light, and so that's what it was. Like, I feel like my mind was coming in contact with my own essence, like a truer part of who I am that's more constant. So my soul, or our being, the light of being, I believe that's what it was. And there's a lot to say about that, like, and how that has then kind of woven into my life as an understanding. But, generally we think that we are the person, like, I am this person, I am this body. And on one level we are, but there are more fundamental levels to who we are that if we can awaken to them, then it can give a context to our lives that can bring in a lot of peace.
Area of the golden light you described, the point of creation, some people call it source or God. Is there still a part of you there? I'm putting this in human terms, but and my other question is, and I just have to ask you, is it over there or is it here?
Yeah, great questions. Yeah, so it's here. It's always been here. Yeah. And so there's a few interesting parts to it. Like, so this light, like, I feel the light is almost like is not the source almost. It's like the light comes from the source. And the light is somehow eternal and constant in itself, but there's a source to the light that isn't even light. Like, it's even, in a sense, even less than that, or even purer than that. And to me, that's like the here and now. So that here and now is always here and now. Like, that's the origin of all experience. Like, that's the most constant part of our lives. Like, no matter what's happened in your life, it always happens here and now. Whether you're awake or whether you're dreaming, you can always recognize that it's happening here and now. And that light also has that quality of being here and now. And one of the reasons that I know that for sure is that I see it all the time now. So I've almost shortly after that experience, I started being able to see it. So I can see it around every single object in my vision and feel it as well. So it's like everything is kind of humming with and shining with this light that is the origin of all of these things, and actually is who we are. We all are this light, and we all are the source of this light. It's just that we've temporarily forgotten that.
Thank you. That was beautiful. It's kind of explained it, but when you talk about who are we, well, who are we? What are we?
It's the big question.
I know. Like, I'm sorry, I'm giving you hard ones here.
No, it's good. It's good. And it's interesting because hearing these questions and talking about it, it evokes energies within my body and deeper understanding and awareness. So shortly before this Kundalini experience happened, I had my first ever spiritual experience, which came about when I was basically atheist. And it was a recognition that there's this peaceful presence that exists. I was able to quiet my mind enough to experience it, and it was really breathtaking and surprising that there was this level of peace that I could access. But it felt like it was something external. Like, I'm here, this human being, looking at that presence, and it's wonderful, and I'm happy about that. But over the years, following the Kundalini Awakening, I've had a growing sense that actually I am that presence. And that's, it's taken a long time for that to sink in, and it's happened gradually. Sometimes it's more obvious than at other times. But there are times where it's very strong. For me, it's often when I go to a cafe and sit there surrounded by people and I'm just sat there by myself quietly, and I can feel the ocean of our being, and it will move me to tears because I'm looking at all these people, and I know that each and every one of them is like a wave on the surface of this being, and they are all that being, and that's all there is. So who are we? Like, we are being, and that can sound abstract, and so it needs to be explored individually. Like, we need to explore that on a personal level to understand what that means for us and to experience it directly, because then you just know, and it's surprisingly easy to know because it's who you are. Like, so you just remember, and you remember when you stop buying into the fantasy and the belief that you're something other than who you are.
And why do we forget? Why do people call it the veils placed upon us? Why is this?
So one of the other things that happened following the Kundalini Awakening was I started to connect with other beings, deities, and things like that. Things that I totally thought were completely fictional, but now have quite a relatively detailed understanding of who and what they are, and in relation to me and human beings. But through connecting with these beings, I have a greater understanding of life and why these things have happened. So the cosmos is a single living being, and each of us is like a cell within the body of the cosmos. Each of us is going on our own journey, yet we are completely inseparate from the cosmos as well. And we are the same being that the cosmos is. So we are all one. Each of us as individuals is going through a process of living and awakening, a deepening of our understanding of ourself. And as we know from our own experience, that has ups and downs. It has moments of clarity and moments of confusion that move in a continual spiral. Sometimes, we revisit old things. That's why I say a spiral. It seems like we're going backwards, but in actuality, we're just spiraling through the same ground. So our life moves through seasons. We have our summers where everything's clear, and we have our winters when everything's cold and withdrawn. But that process of expansion in the summer and contraction in the winter fuels our awakening through the movement of experience, our awareness becomes stronger. We burn through our ignorance through that process. The cosmos does the same thing. You know, there's a famous saying, as above, so below, as below, so above. Like, what applies to us as smaller beings also applies to vaster beings, like the cosmos. So the cosmos moves through seasons, and it moves through seasons in different parts of itself at different times. So right now, there'll be parts of the cosmos that are in summer, parts that are deeply awake to itself as being, and all the parts of the cosmos, all the beings, you know, the individuals in that area will deeply understand who they are and live from that place and be in a wonderful place. But there are parts of the cosmos that are in winter and are very disconnected. So there's horrible things happening. You know, it's the opposite. And that's what we're in. We're in that winter, you know, and we can look around us and see the evidence of that all around us, the disconnection, the loss of awareness of who we are, the madness that we're suffering from. But that madness has a context. And the context is that it's part of the natural movement of the seasons of the cosmos, which inevitably lead to the awakening of the cosmos over time. So we could look at our situation now and think, this is so despairing and awful that this is all happening. Or we could look at this situation and go, we are incredible, courageous beings because we have chosen to incarnate into a realm that is in the depths of winter so that we can play our parts in the awakening of the cosmos, which is like the grandest masterpiece that we could ever take part in.
Beautiful. I usually sometimes ask this question towards the end, but how can we live to assist the cosmos and to nourish our soul and be the best version of ourselves?
Like, the simple answer to that is that that's what you're doing. Like, you're already doing that. I think sometimes we put a real burden on ourselves to try to kind of be the best that we can be. And we lose sight of what we're already doing, what we're already providing. So some of the beings that I work with, they will say things like, we admire you so much because we know what you have sacrificed to be here. We know that you have come from these incredible heavenly realms that you cannot possibly conceive of now. And you have chosen to give that up for the benefit of the cosmos. And that's true of every single one of you. Every single one, no exceptions. It doesn't matter how wonderful and magnificent you are or how terrible and awful you are. That remains true for every single one of you. So you've already done it. You've already given so much. So that's the given. You've got that. Then it's a question of awareness, I think. It's like, okay, what can I do in my life to be more aware now? Because we're constantly presented with crossroads. Like, I had a situation recently where I went through a breakup, like a romantic breakup, and I was presented with a crossroads. Like, do I want to go into frustration and bitterness and sadness and fear, or do I want to choose something different? And normally I would have chosen the frustration and fear and just unconsciously gone into that. That's like my pattern. But this time it was different. Like, I saw that happening. I reached out for help. Someone gave me a really good pointer, I chose to take that pointer, and what I saw was that there was an opportunity to let love win that day. And instead of serving my own fears, I chose, it's going to make me cry. I chose to serve love. And in such a way that this wasn't like an idea, like it was completely tangible, like in my body, and I was having mystical experiences around it where I realized that I am love, and that we all are, and that by being loving to my partner during our breakup, it was allowing love to enter this world and my humanity and hers. And it showed me that that's what I'm supposed to be in service to love itself, which is me and everyone.
Oh, I feel like giving you a big hug. What a guy, really. It's amazing. But why, I mean, I just loved your explanation that you had a choice to choose love that day. But why? What would be your advice to people that suffer? We can suffer so much in our humanness.
Yeah, like it's a matter of timing. Like, so we all have our timing, and even shortly before that, I wasn't ready for that. So I really wouldn't want anybody to hear this and start thinking that they're supposed to do that every time and put some kind of burden on themselves, like to live up to some kind of standard, because I don't live up to that standard. You know, I think it's easy to watch something like this and go, to kind of assume that I'm in that place all the time, and I'm not. You know, yesterday I was getting frustrated about tiny things. I didn't even really know why, you know, so I slipped out a bit, and I really want to be honest about all of that, because I think there's a lot of people who go through these kinds of experiences and start speaking publicly about them, and then only share the ups and don't share the downs. And I really, really want to be human and show my humanity when I talk about this. It's like I'm in there with you. So what people can do, sometimes the only thing that you can do is just put one foot in front of the other. Like sometimes the pain and the suffering is so much that there's nothing else that you can do, and you can't get out of it. Right? And that's okay. Like you're still contributing to all of everything I've spoken about. You're still fully involved. You're still part of it. You're still worthy. You're still worthy of existing. You still belong here. Your suffering does not mean that you don't belong. So sometimes that's what's needed, and that's all that you can do. Sometimes when you're in that place, you need to reach out for support. If there's people that you know, who you trust, who can help you to come out of that spiral. Because really, it's like a spiral of negative thinking and feeling. Ultimately, it's a kind of dream. It's a kind of delusion. But when we're really stuck in it, that's often not the right approach to have. You know, we need to be human and compassionate toward that. But as your awareness starts to build and become stronger, you will start to have a choice. So that's something that happens over time. Initially, there isn't much choice. But as your awareness becomes stronger, you do get the opportunity to choose. So then you can say, do I want to go down this road of suffering? Do I want to fuel this suffering? And you can reach a point where you can see yourself doing it. Like, I'm feeding suffering with my life force, with my attention. Okay, I'm going to choose to give attention to something else. I'm going to choose to create for myself something happier than this. But it changes over time. And we move in a spiral. So there'll be days where that's easier and days where that's harder. And I think one of the things I've learned is to see that, you know, and not beat myself up on the days where I'm spiraling down, and understand that there's like a deeper purpose to that. You know?
I love how you explained before about the reincarnation and higher beings that have chosen to incarnate on this, in our humanness, for the benefit of the galaxy or the universe, or whatever terminology you choose to use. You spoke a few times about the angels and the deities, or deities, depending what your accent is. Do you mind sharing more of those experiences? Who are they? What are they? And how do they assist?
Yeah. So who are they? Fundamentally, they are us. Like, we are them. So I started having experiences, out-of-body experiences, when shortly after that big Kundalini Awakening. And I started meeting beings. That led into meeting angels. I always struggle to talk about this because they are so beautiful. It's hard to put it into words. It's like they're so loving and so pure that it makes me cry. Like, even just thinking about them, like, it reminds me, like, of their energy, and it's like, it's shocking. It's shocking to me, like, how anything can be that pure. And something about it, it just cleanses my heart. So yeah, I had experiences of meeting them, hearing their voices, and one in particular. So first of all, every time I've met those beings, like, it's so obvious that I am them and that they are me. And I mean that of all of us. I'm not trying to single myself out as special. Like, I'm saying that they're so pure that being, or God, if you like, is just so vibrant and shining through them that it's easy to see. It creates this clarity. Similar things happen, you know, with saints and mystics, like, where they're so clear. They're just this very clear mirror of our divinity back to ourselves. And sometimes we mistake that for their specialness, but in actuality, what we're experiencing is the incredible beauty and peace of our own being. The good mystics will often talk about that, like, that they're mirrors. So the same is true of the angels when I met them. So they helped me to see that. On another level, so it's like, so the cosmos is one being, but that includes all of these different levels of reality, so including the heavens. Those are just like different levels of the same being, that are populated with all these different beings or creatures or whatever you want to call them. But in a sense, what they all are is just one psyche. That's what we all are. Like, we're one mind. You could call the cosmos a mind if you wanted to. So we're all part of that. And just like in a dream, all the different characters represent different parts of your psyche. The same is true of our waking lives, including all the mystical experiences. So all these beings in the heavens are actually just a higher part of your own mind. You know, in a sense, like a higher thought or a purer thought or a more spiritually in tune level of your own psyche. So we can experience them as separate from ourselves in the same way as we do with our bodies, yet on another level, they are us, and they can teach us a lot about ourselves, and that goes both ways. They learn a lot about themselves by interacting with us, because they are very clear on the fact that we are all one. Like sometimes I wondered, like, why are the angels even coming to help? Why are these beings even coming to help? And over time, I realized that it's because it makes complete sense. Like, because it's like one hand bandaging the other hand when it's been cut.
Beautiful explanation. Thank you so much. I've also got one more question for you. It's one of my favorite topics. Do you mind just talking briefly about the dragons or your dragon experience?
Yeah. So, like a few months after after my Kundalini Awakening, I'd had all these experiences with angels and deities and everything, and I was walking through London where I was living at the time, and in my mind's eye, I could see this huge dragon, like just flying through the sky and like coming up to me. It was a green dragon, and I was like, I'm losing it. Like, I can get on board with angels and deities, like my psyche can handle that. But dragons, like, I must be going mad. Like, that can't be real. So I blocked it out. I was like, nope. And I didn't see them again for years. And it was actually only last year, in October, I felt really called to go to Sicily. So I went there, and I was near Mount Etna. I had been speaking this language that I didn't understand for maybe a year at this point, like just saying all these words, and they seemed to carry like a frequency, a vibration that made me feel peaceful and calm and powerful. And you know, that was going on, and then I felt like I was supposed to do a ritual at the top of Mount Etna. So I go up there and I perform this ritual, and I film myself doing it, and I instinctively start speaking that language that I'd been speaking. Just felt like the right thing to do. Felt all this energy moving through me, and then I just felt this incredible peace. It was beautiful. It felt amazing. I came back down from the mountain, and I sent the video to a friend of mine, and she was like, oh, you should look at this YouTube video. And so I watched this video, and it's a guy, and he's speaking in the exact same style of language that I was speaking in, and it blew my mind, because I was like, I don't know where this language has even come from, like, and I've never heard anyone who's speaking it. And this guy was speaking it, and the title of the video was Dragon Light Language. So yeah, it blew my mind, and I think minutes after that, I just felt this wall of energy, just like one, like just hit me. It was so strong, and this dragon started speaking to me, because I realized I'd gone up a volcano, an active volcano. I actually went up there on Halloween, so like this day when the veils between realms are the thinnest, and performed a ritual speaking dragon light language into an active volcano. Like, and the dragon was like, you didn't realize what you've done, like what you've opened yourself to us, and we're here, and this was always meant to happen. like that you were going to form this connection. So I started to grow accustomed to their energy. It didn't feel as intense over time. And so many of them introduced themselves over the following weeks. And there's been 10 so far, each one with a completely different energy. 7 of them relate to the 7 chakras. So they each have their own color and quality and personality. And they've been explaining to me the nature of the cosmos, like what I was saying to you about the winters, the seasons. They explained that to me. And they said, we have come because it's time for humanity to return, like the great return, because we've been in like a seed of consciousness trapped within itself. But the seed is opening. And that opening isn't just down to humanity. It's not just in humanity's hands. There are many, many beings from all over the cosmos that are coming to aid this awakening. And these dragons are part of that. Sometimes I reflect back on on my life. I was training to be a doctor, and I worked in psychological science. Like, I've got published research articles.
Amazing.
So to hear
life doesn't
say,
always work out as planned, does it?
No. Yeah. I'm glad. I feel very fortunate.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing those experiences. I will leave a link below in the show notes, but Jack, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so it's my website, which is myrisingrose.com. That's named after the dragons. They told me they're the dragons of the rising rose. I do healing sessions with people. I also channel these beings for people. So I channel the dragons, and then they do healing sessions for people. Also my Facebook. I'm Jack Morrigan on Facebook. That's where I'm most active. Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'd like to say is that is there anything else you'd like to share with the Passion Harvest audience that I haven't asked you?
Yeah. Yeah. So some of you will be losing hope. Yeah. Yeah, because we're disconnected. We've lost our place, and we feel like we don't belong, and we're overwhelmed with everything that's happening. There's so much happening in this world. And sometimes that can feel bleak, and sometimes it can feel like it doesn't have a purpose. And we don't have a purpose. But you do. Even if you did absolutely nothing for the rest of your life, you would have purpose, because you exist. And because you are completely inseparate from our living world in the whole cosmos, which is, at its core, true love. And everything that you're going through in your life is an expression of true love. Even your suffering, because you're suffering for something greater than yourself, even if you don't remember that, which makes it even more beautiful that you would forget. But you can remember. You can remember. And as you remember, it changes your life. So there is hope, and you have purpose. So keep going.
What an amazing, beautiful message to end the show. Jack, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. Wow. Can't wait to re-listen to this episode. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye-bye. If you liked this episode, please do subscribe for weekly, passionate, inspirational interviews.